Hello everyone, welcome to another Narc Survivor live video. In this one I'm going to be talking about why I will never get married. I'm 35 at the moment. In 2 months I will be 36. And I have no intentions of getting married. I have no plans to marry anyone. And of course, there are reasons for that. There are reasons why I have no intentions of getting married. And it's because of the state of the world today. It's because of how most women are. Because most women these days, they are very manipulative and exploitative. They're only looking to use men for benefits, for their resources. And it's just not a good deal for the men. And also you've got to consider, what have these women been doing before you met them? What were they doing for all of that time? Where were they? Who were they seeing? Because there's a lot of women out there in the world today. All they're doing is going to bars, going to clubs, sleeping around with lots of different men who they don't even know, who they don't even care about. They're just using them for money, using them for sex. And then, one day then they find me. And maybe they decide they want to settle down with me. They decide it could be a good opportunity for them to marry me, just so that I can take care of them for the rest of my life. After all of my life, I've been working hard on myself, working hard on my business, helping as many people as I can. But what many of these girls have been doing is just partying, clubbing, sleeping around, not even taking care of themselves properly or their own bodies. While I've been taking very good care of myself, exercising, going to the gym. I've been a vegan now since September 2019. That's about 5 years. So for a very long time, I've been taking good care of myself. I've been doing what I need to do. And yet there's a lot of women out there who all they're doing is ruining themselves. Getting drunk every weekend, going to clubs, bars, sleeping around, doing lots of stupid things, not taking care of themselves. And so it's not a good deal for me as a man to deal with a woman who may have made a lot of wrong choices, didn't take good care of herself and her body, slept around, and maybe didn't work hard. And then I'm left to take care of that person. I'm left to be their caretaker, their parent almost. And this is how it is, because many women are narcissistic. They're looking for a caretaker. Now, of course, in a marriage, as a partnership, you're meant to take care of each other. You're meant to take care of yourselves, and you're meant to take care of each other as well. But with the narcissist, they want you to neglect yourself and only take care of them. Which means it's only going to end up destroying you and destroying them as well. Because of course, if that they can't take proper care of themselves, and they don't let you take care of yourself, and you're meant to take care of them, then at some point, the ship is going to sink for both of you. Both of you are going to crash. Both of your lives are going to fall apart. Because that's the only way that they can go when they're dependent on you as a source of supply. And that's what it is with a lot of women these days. I mean, if you look at the traits of narcissistic personality disorder, this is what many women have these days. And even Sam Vaknin mentioned this in his videos. In the 1970s, it used to be that it was mostly men who were narcissists. But now at this point today, it's now 50-50. Women have caught up with men. So there's just as many female narcissists as there are males. And if they've managed to catch up that quickly, then there's a good chance that in the future there could be more female narcissists than male narcissists. And they're everywhere these days. I mean, just look at the traits of narcissistic personality disorder. The grandiosity, self-absorption, lack of empathy, an excessive need for admiration, an exploitative nature. Most women these days have all of the traits. Most women these days are narcissistic. And of course, they use relationships, marriage, children. They use these things for supply, to uphold their grandiose false self, because that's all they care about. They don't care about their partner, and they don't even care about their own children. 206 live viewers. If you're finding this video helpful so far, please give it a thumbs up for me. Thank you. Let's get this message out there. But yeah, they don't care about anyone other than themselves. Themselves is all they care about. They don't care about men. And of course, I'm not saying this for all women. I know there's a lot of good women on my channel. Women who have been victims of narcissists. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about female narcissists who have a predatory nature, who are seeking to exploit men, because these types of women are very dangerous. I mean, you could get involved with a woman like that, and at first she could be very kind, very polite, very sweet. And she may act like she's there for you, like she's there to help you, to support you. And you're going to have a good partnership together where you can build each other up. She will make you feel that way initially. That's the manipulation, that's the love bombing. And you'll just end up doing more and more for her, while all she's giving you is lies and future faking. Until at some point you get fed up because you've done so much and you've got nothing back in return. Or not even a fraction of what you've given out. Now that's when she turns against you, she starts devaluing you. And then you're running endlessly on this hamster wheel trying to please her. But no matter what you do, she's never happy, because if she was to be happy, if she was satisfied with what you were doing for her, then that means that you could stop. And then instead of you just getting more lies and future faking, it would mean that it's time for her to reciprocate. Which of course is not what narcissistic women want. They want you to keep going. And then what happens is, when you finally start to get fed up, or once she's drained the life out of you, then if you're married, she's ready to get a divorce. She's ready to take full custody of your children. She's ready to file for alimony, child support, while taking your house, your car, everything you own. And then before you know it, she finds another guy. A guy who maybe doesn't have any money, doesn't have anything. But then that guy is living in your house, sitting on your couch, watching your television, spending your money, driving your cars, spending time with your children that you can't even see, but you're paying so much money for them every month. And maybe they're also going on vacations together. And if you're lucky, the best that you get after you've sacrificed your entire life, all of your life's work, your savings, everything, your loyalty and dedication to this woman, everything you sacrifice for her and your children. After all of that, the best that you get at the end of it is maybe you get to see some fake pictures on Instagram where your children are on vacation with your ex and her new partner now, which they've used your money for. And that's how it goes. That's why marriage just isn't really worth it for men anymore. Because it's like you work hard all of your life, and then you invest it all into a woman for what? Because society, the court systems, it's all set up to favor women. And not only does it favor women, it also appears to support narcissists as well. And this is how so many of us get caught up in this. And now our only support is in these communities. Because there's no authorities out there. We can't deal with the courts. The narcissists always seem to win. So we're left stuck. And that's how it is with a lot of these women. I mean, I've dealt with so many of them already. And so many of them manipulated me, conned me, deceived me, took everything I had and left me with nothing, while I was just innocently looking for a relationship, a life partner. And yeah, it was traumatizing, it was upsetting, but I had to deal with it. I had to get through it. And I don't hate women. I'm not a misogynist. But for me, it's more about promoting awareness so that other men don't get caught up in it. Because it's not about discriminating against women. As I said, of course, not all women are like this. But there are a lot of women out there who are like this. And I'm sure there's many women who are watching this who have dealt with women like this as well. So it's important to be aware of it. Because every day another man's life has gone down the drain. Another man who worked very hard all of his life to provide for his family and for his children and to support the community that we live in. And this is why when you look around, everything's just so degenerate. Everything's fallen apart. The divorce rate is higher than it's ever been. And so is the rate of single mothers. And the rate of mental illnesses, the rate of anxiety disorders and depression. And the cost of living, inflation. Everything is just as bad as it could possibly be. But it could still get worse. I mean, at the moment already, the suicide rate for men is 3 times higher than women. And it doesn't look like that's going to reduce anytime soon. And also now we're starting to see as well, suicide is becoming quite common among children and teenagers. So again, things are getting really bad. And it's only continuing to get worse. And so many people are like this in the world today. So of course, when you invest in a partnership with people who have all of these problems, all of these mental health issues that they haven't even worked on, and you're getting involved in that, of course, it's going to have a negative effect on you. Because these are people who have never even dealt with themselves. It's kind of like just jumping into an old car that has all of these problems. No one took it to the garage, no one had it serviced, and then you jump into it thinking that that car's going to get you from A to B. Of course it's not. It's just going to give you tons of problems. And it doesn't matter how much fuel you put in it, doesn't matter how much you top up the oil, doesn't matter how much you clean it, it's still going to have problems. It's still just going to destroy you, because these people have neglected themselves their entire lives. They've neglected their mental health, they've neglected their minds. And this is how they have so many problems. And then you get around them, all they can do is give you problems, because that's all that they've got to give. But then they disguise it, they make it look good. It's kind of like they just give a car a new paint job, they make it look shiny and new, but underneath that it's still the same vehicle. It's still not any good. It may just look good at first, it may get you to a certain point, but then it's going to fall apart. It's not going to help you in the long run. And this is what it's like with most women today. And, let's just talk about the beginning, early dating stages. Let's say I want to go out with a woman, I want to go out on a date. With most women these days, I'm sure, I would be expected to pay for the date. I would be expected to take her to a fine dining restaurant, pay for everything, and probably pay for a taxi to get there. And the way a lot of women are these days, but you won't get anything out of it. And I'm sure at the end of the date, you may have thought that you had some good conversation, that you connected to her, that you'd be expected a kiss at the end, and then she'll just turn her cheek. Or she'll just look at you thinking, how could you expect anything from her? How could you expect to even get to kiss her on the cheek at the end of a date, or give her a hug? Doesn't matter if you spent all of the money on a taxi to get there. Doesn't matter if you spent all of the money on the food. And I'm gonna put my earphones in now because the banging is so intense. There's a man who lives upstairs. He's like a caveman. I went up there the other day. I had a word with him because he just constantly bangs on the floor. He acts very big and tough, but when I went up there, he was just hiding behind the door. He wouldn't even come out. And he looks like he hasn't had a haircut for about 10 years. Got to put the earphones in because there's so much banging coming from upstairs. It's really loud. Constant horns coming from outside as well. So it helps me, as you can see, I can think clearly now about what I'm saying. So yeah, that's how it goes. I mean, you take a woman out for a date, you're expected to pay for everything. You're expected to pay for the taxi there, you're expected to pay for her food, you're expected to pay for everything. And you don't get anything. All you get is just a woman sitting at the table, eating the food that you paid for, probably complaining or sulking because you didn't get to something else that was far more expensive. And yeah, she just sits there and she expects you to admire her, compliment her, make her feel good about yourself, and you may have spent a long time getting ready for her. You might have bought a new shirt, you might have cleaned your car, and she won't compliment you on any of that. You're meant to pay for everything, you're meant to support it all, and at the same time, you're meant to be complimenting her and making her feel good. I mean, that's just crazy, it's ridiculous. But that's how they expect it to be. And the crazy thing is, that woman who you may be taking out on a date, that woman who you're letting in your car, or you're paying a taxi for her, and you're spending all of this money on her at a fine dining restaurant, you may not even be aware of it, but that woman could be sleeping around with a bunch of other men who aren't doing anything for her, who aren't paying for her taxi, they're not giving her rides, they're not taking her to a fine dining restaurant, and then they're getting all of these benefits out of it. That's how it is. Well, you're the type of guy who's looking for long term, you're looking for marriage. That very girl who you are pursuing, she may assign you for that role, but then she's got all of these other guys who are waiting for her, who she's just seen for fun. She's just sleeping around with. And many women are so arrogant, you go out on a date with them, and even though you're paying for everything, you may have got dressed up for her, she'll just be looking down at her phone. She won't even be paying attention to you. She'll just be looking at her texts, looking at her social media, maybe still on dating apps, even while she's on a date with you. And I'm sure this is the experience that many of you have had with modern women today. And that could just be the first date. Many women will just use you for the first date and get what they can out of you. And then they'll just do the same thing again to the next man. And it just becomes a vicious cycle where you could be meeting all of these women, spending all of this money on fuel for taxis or at fine dining restaurants, and you're getting nothing out of it. You're not getting any emotion from them. You're not getting any attention. You're not getting any affection, any intimacy. You're not getting a relationship. You're not getting anything. But you're investing all of your time, all of your effort, all of your money and resources into them, which is very unfair. It's not a good deal. Especially considering the fact that you may have worked hard all of your life. You may have worked on yourself. I mean, the women that you're dating may not even be able to reciprocate even a fraction of your value back to you, of what you're giving to them. And yet they're the ones who are using and exploiting you. And this is why they do it, because they get a really good deal. And this is how it is these days, is that highly successful, attractive men are, as we say, they're simping over just average women. Average women who don't even go to the gym, they don't even take care of themselves. They're not focused on developing their awareness or focusing on their healing. Well, that's what you may be doing. That's what you may have been doing for a very long time. This is how it is with a lot of women these days, because they're traumatized. And that's it. When someone's traumatized, when someone's mentally ill, it's always all about themselves. Because it's like they've got a big gaping hole inside of them, a void. And their body is screaming out, telling them that they need something, they need admiration, they need narcissistic supply, they need support. But really, what it's telling them is that they need to pay attention to themselves. But they don't want to pay attention to themselves because they've done so many bad things to people. They've exploited so many people throughout their lives, and they've neglected themselves for such a long time. It's much easier for them to appoint someone else to fulfill that role. The problem is that nothing you do will ever complete them. It will never be enough. You will never be able to satisfy them. You will never be able to make them happy because they've got a lot of trauma. And a lot of people these days, not just women, but a lot of people have unmet emotional needs in childhood. And they have no interest in fulfilling their own emotional needs. They have no interest in doing the inner work. They're looking for a caretaker. They're looking for someone to take care of them. The problem is that they can't take care of you because they can't even take care of themselves. And this is what it's like in the dating world today. Statistics show that many people on dating apps are narcissists or fake profiles. And even the ones that are real, even then they could be using filters on their photos, or they may have taken the photo from someone else. Or they may not even be single, they may be with someone already. Statistics show that something like 40% of Tinder users aren't even single. But yeah, even with the real profiles, they may just be looking to use people, to exploit them. Of course, narcissists are going to be all over dating apps because of their grandiosity, their arrogance, their sense of entitlement, their delusions of grandeur, their excessive need for admiration. Because again, it's like they have a big gaping hole inside of them that they're trying to fill. They're seeking a caretaker. But they're like big babies in adult bodies. They don't have anything to bring to you. They're not looking for a partnership. They're looking for you to give to them. As you could spend all of your time in dating apps, it's going to drain the life out of you. Because you're going to be investing all of your time, all of your energy, effort, money and resources into it. And you're going to get little or nothing back. Because most of these women, they're just using people. That's all that they're doing. And maybe sometimes they might find a guy who's particularly attractive. If they can find a model on there or something. Or someone who's highly successful, a CEO, an influencer. And even then, yeah, they might meet up with that kind of guy. They might sleep with him. But even then, that's just for validation. That's for their validation. He's not going to be getting anything out of it. He might be getting sex, but even then, the sex isn't going to be any good because these women can't validate you. These women can't emotionally connect. So, the only type of person that they can really fulfill, for a short time at least, is someone more like themselves. Someone who's narcissistic, someone who doesn't care about emotional connection. But even then, even narcissists, they're going to want that validation. But then narcissists, they want that validation one way because it takes a lot of effort. It drains the life out of them when they have to act, when they have to perform. When they have to validate you, when they have to try to connect to you, that's very tiring for a narcissist because that's not their natural mode of being. Their disorder is meant to get them as much as they can for themselves, as much attention, admiration, validation, money and resources, residual benefits, characteristics. Is meant to be all for them. It's not meant for them to be given out to you. This is why Even if they do find someone else, they find a narcissist on a dating app, they find someone else who is also a manipulator, it's not going to go well. Because they're both only all about themselves. They both want someone to pour into their void. So no matter who these people get involved with, it doesn't work well. And this is how they typically thrive in short-term situations with people who fall for the lies of future faking. They're susceptible to their manipulation. So they pour into them, they fill their cup up, and then by the time they figure it out and they're expecting something back in return, the narcissist has already gone off onto someone else. Or sometimes if two narcissists come together, they may just use each other for what they both got from their previous sources of supply, and then they'll just go off to someone else. Or they might work together, which a lot of narcissists are doing these days. They might work together to target an unsuspecting victim. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if on these dating apps, if there are women on there who are working in groups to where they con people together. I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing that. Because this is what a lot of narcissists are doing these days. They're teaming up together to target unsuspecting victims. So it's important to be aware of that. But yeah, these female narcissists are everywhere. They are everywhere. They're all over dating apps. They're all over social media. And they just only care about themselves. And this is why if you get involved with one, it can cause a lot of trouble for you. And this is the funny thing, because I am aware that there is we have these groups. There's MGTOW, men going their own way, and also of course the incel community. I'm aware of these groups, and I am aware that these men are very bitter and resentful after how they have been treated by women. But actually, here's the funny thing. Because if any of you who are watching this, you identify with these groups, incels or MGTOW, the whole basis of these groups, it appears as though the men feel like they've been cheated. They feel like they have lost out on something that they should have gotten, that they should have had. Whether it's a relationship, or with the incels, it's involuntary celibates. So maybe they wanted intimacy, they wanted sex. Here's the thing, and from my experience, is that you guys aren't actually missing out on anything. You're not missing out on a relationship with these women. If you got involved with them, it would have caused you more trouble than it's worth. It would have caused you a lot of problems. It would have affected you financially, your mental health. They could have created all sorts of problems for you. You could have ended up gotten fired from your job. You could have lost your business. All kinds of things could have happened. And if you married them, they would have gotten you set up on alimony, child support, and even for the incels, having sex with these women. Just think about this for a moment. A woman who didn't even care about you. She's just all about herself. She's self-absorbed. She lacks empathy. You really think sex with a woman like that is going to be any good? Of course not. Because it's just going to be all about herself. And women like that, they sleep around, they got STIs, they neglect themselves. I mean, if they neglect their own mental health to where they then ended up traumatizing you, You really think that they haven't got any STIs? You really think that they get themselves checked? If their mental health isn't even a concern to them? And there's so many other things as well, but really, these women are not worth your time. Even for sexual purposes, they're just no good. They're no good at all. And the only type of sex that they can give to you and a relationship is just a fantasy. They can only trauma bond you to them. It's not going to be something where you've actually got a connection with someone who actually has the ability to pair bond with you. It's never going to be that way with it. So, for those of you who identify with the MGTOW or incel community, you guys are very lucky. You've dodged a bullet. These women are doing you a favor. Because I have been with a lot of women in my life. Even though I started late, I didn't lose my virginity until I was just 22. But from that point on, I met so many women. And honestly, 99% of them left me far worse off mentally, emotionally, financially, sexually. They left me far worse off than before I got involved with them. And if I wanted to have a better life myself, all I had to do was just avoid all of them and just go into monk mode. And honestly, that's the truth. But of course, there's plenty of men out there who like to use this as a part of their grandiosity. Even men who may not be narcissists. You know, they like to act like they met all of these women and they had such a great time and they slept with a supermodel, a celebrity or whatever. But they won't ever actually tell you the truth. Because then that makes them look bad. It makes them look like they didn't win in that situation. But yeah, I am telling you the truth. That they're doing you a favor. You are winning by not getting involved with them. And this is how so many men who are a part of the MGTOW community or they're incels, what happens to them later in life? They end up becoming very successful. Just look at so many billionaires. They were nerds, incels. And they practiced semen retention. They didn't sleep with women. And then take a look at the guys who do get involved with lots of women. Where do they end up? It doesn't get them very far. It ruins their life. And it's because most women these days are no good. And even Bill Gates. He worked hard all of his life. He created Microsoft. And he didn't really get involved with women when he was younger. He practiced semen retention. He was celibate. And then he met his wife. And recently, he gave half of his fortune away to his wife through the divorce. So just imagine how much richer he would be now. And also Elon Musk. He's married, he's got about 10 children, I think. He has to pay for all of them. So a lot of these men who are MGTOW, who are incels, at some point they do end up getting involved with women, thinking that finally things are going to be great. They're finally going to get what they wanted, what they've been waiting for all of their lives. And then what happens? It ruins them. It destroys their lives. It doesn't make it any better. And even the men who are in relationships and they think they found the right one, many of them could just be in fantasy, because that's how it is when you be in a relationship. You think that it's good, you think you're getting a good deal, but then at some point you begin to wake up, and there's people in marriages for years, decades, who don't realize it until the very end, just how bad it was, just how much they lost, just how much it affected them. That's what it was like for me when I was growing up in a narcissistic family. I was being abused all of that time, as I spoke about in my live video yesterday, and I didn't understand what was happening. And I remember my sister telling me, this was when I was a teenager, when I was in my late teens. She would say to me how she doesn't like it when she comes back home because everything's so toxic. And that stopped me. It made me think for a moment. But then it didn't really hit home for me. And then, of course, when I got to my mid-late 20s, I started to realize it. I started to see, wow, our family is really toxic. It is. And I just didn't click on at the time. I didn't understand what she was saying, and I still thought it was me because I was being brainwashed. So that's just it. And yeah, I thought about it sometimes, as a lot of people do in the MGTOW and the incel communities. Yeah, when you look at most women these days, and it's like, they've got so many issues, so many problems, they don't take good care of themselves, they just sleep around. And you think maybe what you need is a younger woman. Whatever the legal age is, wherever you are, you need a woman who's that age, a virgin, never had a boyfriend, or maybe she's had one or two. You think that that's what you need, and then you can have a successful relationship, a successful marriage. But again, it exists only in your imagination, because think about it like this. As this does happen, this has happened so many times to people, that seemingly pure, innocent, virgin girl who you're thinking of marrying and spending your life with, she may seem that way initially. Even girls that age, they know how to lie, they know how to hide. They watch movies, they see celebrities, they know what to do to seduce a man, to get a man to commit, to get what they want from him. And then at some point later on, you may begin to see that things are very different. Maybe she's no longer as pure or innocent as she initially seemed. And maybe now she's treating you very differently. So whatever you saw initially when you first met that girl, it was all fake. It was all a lie. It was all fantasy. It had to have been, because if it wasn't, she would still be that same girl now. So even those of you who have these fantasies of younger girls, virgins, yes, they may seem that way when you first meet them, when you first get involved with them. What about as they get older? What about 5, 10 years later? It reveals that it was just fantasy. And instead of risking everything, taking a chance with a young girl who likely has no job, no money, and you have to take care of her, You could have just got involved with an older girl. Or just role-played instead and just acted as though she was sweet, young and innocent. It wouldn't have been much different. Because that's just it. It's all just fantasy. If it's not fantasy, then why are they not the same person years after you meet them? Because I feel like I'm still the same person that I always was. I don't feel like I've changed from who I was before, when I was younger. So when men get involved with these young girls and they marry them, and then they feel like they've suddenly changed, they probably haven't. They were that way all along, they just hid that from you. And also, the thing with passport bros, a lot of men are thinking that all they're going to do is go to a foreign country, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, maybe Thailand, the Philippines. Again, that's all fantasy. Women here aren't really like that. It's all just it's all just an act. It's just something that they use to lure men in, to exploit you, especially to exploit foreigners. And it's so that they can get what they need from you: money, resources, lifelong commitment. It's still not about you. And especially in these countries, these poor countries, third world countries, a lot of women in these countries can barely even survive. They can barely even take care of themselves. So you really think that they're able to think of someone else, to think of your needs, to think of what's important to you? They can only think about survival. They're in survival mode. They were brought up in poverty. So all they can think about is money, how they're going to get their next meal, how they're going to pay their bills, their tuition fees, how they're going to get money to take care of their family. Because that's the responsibilities that a lot of these girls have, is that they've got brothers and sisters who have to go to school and need food. They've got elderly parents who may have illnesses because the healthcare is quite poor in these countries. So again, they're looking for someone who's going to fund all of that. And that's exactly what happens with passport bros when they do come over to Eastern European or Southeast Asian countries. They end up taking care of an entire family, sometimes an entire village, because it's still not about you. Women in the eastern part of the world, they just have a different way of going about it. Narcissistic women in the Western world, they're more overt. But over here, they're more covert, more vulnerable, manipulative. And they know how to get their way with you. They know what you're looking for, what you need, what was going to make you commit to them. And yeah, at some point, you may begin to wake up, you may begin to see that it's really not that different to how it is back home. of course, this isn't the case for all women. There's a lot of women out there who are good. They are genuine. They do have the ability to care about another person. But unfortunately, many of these women have already been exploited by narcissists. Or they may have been abused by their own families. They may even have been sexually abused in childhood. Often by their own family members, because this is a lot more common than people think. It's very common that young girls are abused as children. Often by their own brothers, their own fathers, their own uncles, cousins. This happens all the time. So there likely is no unicorn. Or if there is, it's extremely rare. And there is a good chance that you will never find it. And this is why I have no interest in getting married. Because just thinking about it, is it going to make me better with the types of women that are out there? Women who are all about themselves. Women who have so many issues. Women who are only pretending to think about me. They're only pretending to care about what I want, just so they can get what they want from me. Because that's most of what's out there. And often, they can portray themselves as being your soulmate. When something seems too good to be true, it usually is. And this is just how it is with most women today. Because they study us, they look for what it is that we're interested in, what it is that we want, and then they mold themselves into that, they become it. They're not that naturally, they're just wearing a mask, so that they can then get what they want from you. So this is why I have no interest in marriage, because most people out there today, they're just all about themselves. They're not about partnership. They're not about growing together. They're not even about working on themselves, working on their own mental health. They're looking for a caretaker. And of course, this isn't just women, this is men too. Plenty of men are out there like that in the world today as well. So I know what I've spoken about with women in this video. I'm sure there's plenty of women watching this who've had the same experiences with men. They don't want to grow, they don't want to be better, they don't care about what you want, they don't care about what's going to make you happy. They might pretend to initially, but still it's just all about them. And in the end, you're the one who ends up losing out. You're the one who ends up paying the cost. You're the one who ends up being deprived because you're with someone who's mentally ill. A big baby in an adult's body who can't even take care of themselves mentally, emotionally, and sometimes even physically. And this is why most of the time, relationships, marriage, is just a waste of time. It's not going to make you better. It's just going to deplete you. It's going to take away from you. And I know this sounds negative. I know it sounds pessimistic. But it's real. It's true. It's factual. Just look at the statistics. This is how it is. Of course, I myself, I am more about focusing on solutions rather than just problems. So of course we've got to think about, what can we do about this? You know, I'm talking about why I will never get married. These are the reasons why I would never get married. Of course, if the right person came around, then I might give it a chance. But most often, even when it seems like the right person, it's just another ploy. It's just another act to exploit you. But what is the solution, Kit? What is the right solution to solve this and to actually find a suitable marriage partner, to find a good woman? Well, for a start, you gotta start thinking with your penis. Stop looking at whatever just looks good. Because what looks good to you might look good to other people. And if all of these other guys have been looking at it, drooling all over this girl, what type of effect do you think that's had on her mental health? To have all of these guys who are just looking at her like a piece of meat, only superficial, that type of thing, that's what produces NPD. It's traumatizing. That's exactly what narcissistic parents do to their children. They focus on them only externally, their physical appearance, their achievements on the outside, and it destroys them. It destroys their sense of self, their self-awareness. So when you're focusing just on what looks good, you're going to find that the most beautiful women out there, they're the most messed up in the mind. They're the most traumatized for that reason. And they're only going to end up destroying you. So, stop thinking with your penis. Stop just focusing on what looks good. Just because it looks good, it doesn't mean that it is good. Just like you might see a shiny red apple, but then you take a bite of it and you realize that it's rotten inside. Same thing with a lot of women today. They can make it look as good as they want to. It doesn't mean that it's good for you. Dr. Rani mentioned in one of her videos that the better a relationship looks on social media, the more toxic it's likely to be in real life. And I believe it's the same for a lot of women these days. The better they look, the more put together, the more attractive, the more toxic they're actually likely to be once you get involved with them. Because many of them just focus on the external, their physical appearance. What about their mental and emotional health? What about their career, their work life, their education? What about just focusing on their character and being a good person? Being a good person for the man that they want to be with. They're not focused on that. They're just focused on how can they become attractive to a man so that they can get what they want from you. Someone like that is not going to be any good for you. So stop thinking with your penis. Stop just looking at whatever looks good. Definitely stop going to the bars. Stop going to the clubs. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter if you're in the West. Doesn't matter if you're in the East. Doesn't matter if you're in the South, the North. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter if you're in Thailand, the Philippines. Stay away from the bars. Stay away from the clubs. Stay away from those types of girls. And also be extremely cautious on dating apps. 99% of them are bad. They're not going to be any good for you. So where is the right place to go? Where can you meet good women? I would say some good places to meet genuine women. Women who may be more introverted. Women who aren't so self-absorbed. They're not so exploitative. They don't have an obsessive need for admiration. The best places to find those types of women would be at the colleges, universities, libraries where they might be reading a book or studying. Also churches. Women who are more spiritual. Those are some excellent places to go where you could find genuine women who can pair bond, because just think about it, men who are looking to use women, or men who are simps who are getting played by women, they're not going to those types of places. They're not going to the colleges. They're not going to the libraries or the churches. They're not going there for that. Also, of course, in the colleges and universities, there's always going to be those 3 or 4s. There's always going to be the town bicycle who everyone rides. So you want to avoid that. And really, you're better off just being with someone who's a bit more nerdy. A geek. I mean, just think about it. Those are the types of men that women exploit. Those types of men who are seeking long term. So it makes sense that that type of woman would work well for long term for you. And I myself, even though I don't look like it, even though, yes, I've always been very trendy, very sporty, played a lot of sports all of my life, I was always interested in the latest fashion, I always had the nicest cars. Despite all of that, I've always been very nerdy myself. I was always very much into computers, video games, and studying science, debating with people, reading books, articles, reports, studies. I was always very much into all of that. And with the first girl I ever met, the first girl that I lost my virginity to when I was 22, I was already ready to get married. And I met another 2 girls after that who I also wanted to marry. I also wanted to be with them long term. But that's how it goes. I mean, they exploited me. They left me and then they wanted to go off and date other boys. They wanted to go to clubs. But yeah, if we're being realistic, those types of women, the beautiful women, not that a girl who's nerdy and who likes to study or read books can't be attractive. I mean, yes, they can be attractive. I mean, as you see in movies sometimes, once they take off the glasses, once they let their hair down, they can look pretty good. But those types of women who are very attractive, they're models, they're noticed for their appearance, they're not going to be good mentally or emotionally. They're going to be messed up. Because all of their lives has been all about their physical appearance, never the person inside. that traumatizes someone, because they want to be seen, they want to be listened to for who they are, not just what's on the outside. So of course, it's had an effect on them. They're not going to be good for long too. Some of them might be good for a one-night stand. They might be good for the weekend. But for a long-term relationship or a marriage, they're not going to be good for that. You're just going to be wasting your time. That's why you've got to stop thinking with your penis. You've got to stop just focusing on what looks good. Typically, what looks good isn't going to be good long term. Just like a car. Just like an expensive sports car. It might look good. It might have good performance. But what about long term? It's going to do your back in. All of that noise is going to irritate you after a while. And that's how it is with women, with these types of women. So, yeah, attractive women are really only better for short term. The ones that are overly attractive. It's better to be with a woman who's less attractive, doesn't get too much attention on her looks. Or maybe she is physically attractive, but she just doesn't show it. She doesn't like to wear makeup. She just ties her hair up. She doesn't want all of the guys to see that. Now that type of woman who is more focused on her studies, reading books, she's more introverted. She may not be so social. She doesn't have tons of friends. She's not around lots of guys all of the time. Now that type of woman is going to be able to connect to you. And she will value and appreciate you. That's the type of woman you need to look for. Because a lot of these guys are making a big mistake. These incels. They're looking for the wrong thing. And these passport bros, so they can see what's going on in the Western world. And then what do? They come to this part of the world. They come to the Philippines, Thailand. And then they're doing the exact same thing again. They're going to the bars, they're going to the clubs. They're chasing after the models. And they don't even think, where is that going to get them? I mean, even if you do manage to get a relationship or a marriage with that type of girl, it's not going to be any good. And I'm talking about this from experience. I've been with plenty of women who look like models, who got tons of attention from men their entire lives. And it was absolute hell being with them. It wasn't a good experience. Because wherever they go, they get attention. Everyone tries to flirt with them. Everyone wants their number, even though they may know that they're in a relationship. They don't care. And that's what you have to deal with when you're with an attractive woman. It's not a good experience to be with women like that. Doesn't matter what part of the world they're from. It just causes more problems, more trouble. And then you'll have all of these guys who are jealous of you, who want to kill you. That's the type of experience that I had. I mean, just look at, there's a Twitter page about me, a parody page that was made in 2012. And it's still online. Just type on Google, Kunti Kumaran, Kunty, Kumaran. Type that in on Google and click on the Twitter page. I had a bunch of people in my town stalking me. This was over 13 years ago. Follow me around town everywhere I went. taking pictures, posting it on this page. And at the time, it had hundreds of followers from my town. Everyone knew about it. And they even took a picture of me with this girl in my car, because all of these guys were jealous, because she was very beautiful. She looked like a model. And people couldn't stand it. This is what can happen. And you're never going to feel like she's yours. You're never going to feel like she's exclusive to you. And you'll always be paranoid. You'll always be worried about, what if she's messaging someone? What if someone's messaging her? What if she's got one of those new apps, even though it doesn't look like she's not talking to anyone on her phone? What if she's got one of those apps where she can hide the social media or the messaging app? Because there's all of these apps now where you can do that. And that's the thing. That's how it's really not worth it. For short term, maybe, yeah. Dating a beautiful girl, having a good time. But when it comes to long term, when it comes to marriage, it's not going to be any good. And everything's always going to be about something superficial. It's going to be all about taking selfies, posting it up on the gram, getting people's attention. This is all going to be so fake. And it's just like what Dr. Ramani said in her video. The better a relationship looks on social media, the more toxic it's likely to be in real life. And that's just how it is. When we focus on appearances, things that are superficial, it may look good on the outside. It may feel good initially, but underneath it's toxic. A lot of these girls, they're just like a bright, shiny red apple that's rotten inside. That's how it is. And so many men have made this mistake, thinking with their penis or thinking about status, where they want to get the most attractive, beautiful woman. And then look at where they end up. It doesn't get them very far. It ends up ruining their lives. So my advice to you is to not make that mistake. And instead, because so many men are thinking about finding a young virgin girl who hasn't had a boyfriend yet, who hasn't been emotionally traumatized. But what about in the future? Think about all the things that could happen later on. She might get a bit older, like what happened with me. Then she starts getting interested in other boys. She wants to know what that's like. She wants to start clubbing, getting attention, because this is what a lot of young girls are like these days. So instead of trying to find like a girl like that, and then getting her to be the way that you want her to be, why not find a girl who is already like that? The problem is, she may not be that attractive. She may not be that beautiful. You may find her in the church, in the library, in college, studying. But that type of girl is going to be more appropriate for long term. Instead of taking a massive gamble, a huge risk with someone who you're never going to be able to lock down. And even if you do, her eyes are always going to be elsewhere. Because these types of girl, you're never going to have all of their attention. Doesn't matter who you are. They're always going to be looking for something else. Because it's been that way for them their entire lives. It's always been about their physical appearance, superficial things. So that's what they're going to be focused on. But it's not going to be that way with girls who didn't get all of those compliments on superficial things. Then you're going to have more of a connection. You're going to have some deep work to do. Because that's all that was ever focused on with that type of girl. The parents were not focusing on that girl's looks. All of the boys at school, they weren't focused on her appearance. So, yeah, that's what I think is right. To have a successful marriage. Instead of taking these gambles, instead of playing these games, instead of trying to be what you think you're supposed to be, this top man, high status, with a beautiful model wife. It's a nice idea. It's a good dream, but it never works out that way. That type of woman might be good as a mistress, a bit on the side. If your woman allows it, of course, if she permits it. But for something long term, it's a waste of time. It's just something that looks good. It's not practical. So that's my advice. And that's why I will never get married. I believe if I will get married, if I am going to be thinking long term, if I am going to be thinking about marriage, it's not going to be with someone who is particularly attractive. I mean, this is natural selection. This is evolution. No man who has evolved, who is wanting to survive and thrive in this life, is going to be thinking about marrying a woman who is extremely attractive. I mean, maybe slightly attractive, but a woman who's a model. Like that kind of level, that's just ridiculous. That's going to cause all sorts of problems. I mean, that's how it was back in the tribal days. If you're with a woman who was very attractive, that could get you killed. That could get you into all sorts of trouble. And even being with that girl, that's just when the problems begin. It looks good on the outside, yes. It looks good in the rest of the world, but it's not that good, really. It's not that good behind the scenes. And also, for those types of guys who are seeking a beautiful woman for marriage, I mean, there's always someone more beautiful. So, what happens then when you find another woman who's more attractive? Or who you think is more attractive, because it's all relative. But then what's going to happen then? What happens if you're married and you've already got a family and then you find another woman who's more attractive? This is why it's best to not focus so heavily on physical appearance. And this is a big problem for us as men. This is something that so many of us do. And some women as well. One of the biggest mistakes that a woman can make is to focus so heavily on a man's physical appearance. Because those types of men, maybe they get a lot of attention, maybe they're sleeping around. And this is how so many women these days who are chasing after these types of men, they can't even pair bond with you. And then if they do find you, it's just to use you, exploit you. then they're off to the next guy. Or they're sleeping with the attractive guy behind your back. So this is how it is. All right, I'm looking forward to this now. Let's have a discussion. Let's look at the live chat. Let's see what people are saying. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments here. The George says, better looking or always looking. That's exactly right. These people who are very attractive people, they're always looking around at other attractive people. They're competing with people of the same sex as well. They're very competitive, they're very jealous, very possessive, very controlling people. And also, so are the ones who are chasing after them. Because you're going to end up being very jealous, possessive, and controlling if you're around someone who's very attractive and gets tons of attention. It's going to cause you a lot of anxiety and stress. It's going to cause you to become very paranoid. Izette says, just become a passport bro and get married in another country. Yeah, I know there's a lot of talk about that. I mean, I did discuss it in this video already. It's not what people think. I mean, what you're doing is you're looking at it as though Western women are all bad and foreign women are all good. And that's just not true. I mean, you've got to think that the women in poorer countries didn't have the same opportunities. So most of these women are in survival mode. They're just trying to survive, and they seek you as a life raft, a lifeline, as someone who's going to help them out of an undesirable situation. That's all that it is, but they'll make it about love. They'll make it about connection. How can they think about connection if they never had their basic needs met? You've got to be able to survive first before you can think about love and connection. But that's just it, because they're brilliant at simulating it. They can make you think you're in love. They can make you believe that they love you because they have to. It's extremely important to them. It's like their life is on the line. So they had to learn these things. They had to be able to manipulate in order for them to survive. The George says they want to get the best guy possible they can pull, so it is harder to keep them. That's right. I mean, when you're going for the top guys or girls, when you're going for the top guys or girls, ones that are high status, attractive, had a good upbringing, successful, yeah, sometimes you might be able to get them, but you won't be able to keep them. And even if they don't leave you, even if they're very nice, they're very kind, which is rare, but let's just say that they are. Just because you've got them, and just because they're nice and they stay with you, what makes you think that you can sustain them at that level? What makes you think that you can sustain this high status person? So you could just end up running them down. You may not be able to support them at that level. And you may also feel very jealous. You may feel like they're leaving you behind. So anytime they get a new opportunity or something, you may even want to sabotage it so that they don't leave you, or so that they don't think that they deserve better. And I'm speaking about this because these kinds of things have happened to me. I've always been a very high status person, and I was raised in an upper middle class affluent family. Dorothea Livingston says, if you don't love God, you don't have nothing. Yes, I do believe that spiritual beliefs are very important. It's good to have faith in a higher power. Jose Thaxton says, yeah, that red flag, she's got to be very expensive. Yeah, you're right. That's another thing I didn't mention, is that, of course, these types of women who are very attractive, they may like designer clothes, expensive makeup, the high maintenance, costs a lot of money. I've been with women like this. They are very expensive. They will drain your finances. And they're just going to look at it as though you can't maintain them. They're not going to see it as though they're ruining your life, like you worked hard for. These types of women can be very dangerous to deal with. And they're very expensive, but are they worth it? Is all of that money that you wasted them, is it really worth what? Just the sex? Because that's all they really give to you. Those types of women, they don't clean the house, they don't cook, they barely even take care of the children. The best that you get from those women is sex. It's all of that money you have to spend of them really worth the sex? I mean, and you spend all of the money on the designer clothes, the makeup, the hair, everything. When she gets into bed with you, she strips all of the makeup off. She takes off the clothes. You don't get the high maintenance woman. All you get is just the body. And even then, I mean, once you're in bed and you close the curtains, you turn the lights off, it could be anyone. It could be anyone that you're having sex with. And especially once the makeup's off, I mean, a lot of women, they look pretty much the same once you take off the makeup. And this is what I'm saying, it's just fantasy most of the time. It really is. And I've actually found myself, in my own personal experience, that intimacy does tend to be better with the less attractive women. Because the ones who are attractive, they don't feel like they have to perform. They think they're already the best thing since sliced bread. So all they have to do is just lay there like a dead fish, and you've got to do all of the work. And yeah, they just see themselves as something to be admired. And it's just all a fantasy. It's not even real. Sherry Allison, brilliant advice. She says, the thing is, never put your faith or trust 100% into any person. That's right, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, trust yourself first. Have faith in yourself, in God, instead of over-trusting and even worshipping a person. The George says, they mad. They couldn't hold down Chad, so they mentally abuse you like a narcissist. Yeah, maybe sometimes that could be the case. It's like they couldn't get the guy they really wanted. They couldn't get him to settle down, so now they're mad, now they're angry. But it always goes back to childhood. And also, even when they're with that type of guy, when they're with this this Chad type role, they're very mad then as well. They're very upset because they can't get that guy. They can't get him to settle down. He's always got his eyes elsewhere. He's looking at all of these different women. And yeah, it causes them to become very jealous, very possessive and controlling. And even for the Chads, can end up in a very difficult situation. In this world today, you're better off just being a chuck. You're better off being a chuck or a Charles, because then they leave you alone then. Most of these women are trouble. The George says, life raft mentality and river rescue boys unite. If you're finding this video helpful so far, give it a thumbs up. Thank you. Zess says you can, it's possible. If you become a high status guy, that's the goal, just be ambitious. Well, that's the thing, I mean, if the girl only wants you because you're high status, because you're successful or you're attractive, it's fake. She just wants you for your vessel or because of materialistic possessions. There's no connection there, there's no love. If you didn't have anything, she wouldn't be with you then. So, what you'll find is that the more high status you become, the more successful, the more attractive, the more fake everything becomes as well. And of course, we see this with celebrities. This is why many of them are depressed, many of them are committing suicide. Just look at Liam Payne from One Direction was a recent one. He took his own life. Because that's just it. The more successful, the more attractive you become, the more fake everything is. It's better to be with someone who values you for you, wants you for you, for the person that you are inside, rather than just this vessel, this meat suit. I mean, it's just flesh and bone. Money is just paper, a plastic card. There's no deeper meaning to it. There's no deeper meaning than what's in your heart, mind, and soul. And from what we know, the brain is the most advanced piece of technology in this entire universe. But that's just it. I mean, when people see someone that they like, the last thing they're thinking about is their brain. All they're thinking about is they're thinking about getting brains. But they're all thinking about the brain inside that person's head. And that's the most magnificent part of us. Our minds. Intelligent discussion, deep conversation. That's what's real. Progress over perfection asks how to know if someone is with you for looks. Any tips, please? Well, I think all of us, I mean, we are going to be looking at looks as well. I mean, especially men. Men are naturally more visual. Women are more emotional. They're more about their emotional needs. Women want their emotional needs fulfilled. Men want their visual needs fulfilled. So all of us, you know, we like things that are visually appealing. But there does need to be a balance. What about the emotional sides of things for us as well as men? And the visual side of things as well for women. There's got to be a balance there. But what I would advise, if you're thinking of testing someone, if they're with you for looks, I wouldn't advise just randomly dressing down one day. Or you stop wearing makeup, you stop doing your hair nice, you stop dressing up, because of course anyone would think there's something strange with that. If normally you're dressing one way and you take good care of yourself, then all of a sudden you just stop. Anyone would find that strange. Anyone would feel like you're just suddenly not making an effort anymore. So that's probably not the best way to find out. I mean, the most important thing, it isn't so much about checking to see if they're with you just for looks. What you should focus on instead is what is missing. So are you getting your emotional needs fulfilled? If you're not feeling emotionally validated, there's a good chance you're just being used for your looks. Because that's typically how it is. When they're with less attractive people, there's going to be more emotional validation. They're going to feel more supported emotionally. And this is how it's always the Chad, it's always the Tyrone. always feel so misunderstood. They always feel so heartbroken. Like no one understands their emotions because everyone's just looking at them physically. Everyone's just looking at how good they look and no one sees them. Same thing with beautiful women. They don't get the emotional validation as well because everyone's just focused on them physically. Again, this is just another reason why it's better to be with someone who is less attractive. That's when you'll get that emotional side more. You're not going to get that from attractive women because they never got that. So how can they give you something that they haven't got to give? They weren't emotionally validated in childhood. People focus more on their physical appearance, so their emotional needs were not fulfilled. But with those who are less attractive, I mean, that's all they got. So they focus on them emotionally. But yeah, this has been a really interesting discussion. And as you know, I'm not normally the type of person to make things so much about myself. Like in yesterday's video where I was talking about how I'm 35, never married, no house, no savings. Or now in today's video talking about why we'll never get married. I don't normally do videos like this where it's just mostly about me and my experience, my life. But it does seem as though it's what people want to see. So yeah, I'm happy to do more content like this because I think that it is interesting to people. People do want to know what I think and what my experiences are. Of course, I'll still be doing videos on narcissists as well. But I think I will do more videos like this too. Because who knows, maybe that's it. Maybe that's why I wasn't getting too many views recently. Maybe it's because I was making it more about the narcissist and making it more about your experiences. And maybe a lot of you want to hear me talk more about myself. So, judging by the views, it seems that that's what people want to see. So I'll start doing that more. I will start speaking more about my own experiences. And also, I'd like to start doing more interviews. Bringing other people into the videos as well. Collaborations. Because I think that could be very beneficial to people as well. I mean, this is a channel with 190,000 subscribers. So many things can be done. There's so many different avenues that we can go down. So there's a lot of potential for the future. A lot of different types of content that I can be introducing. So yeah, we will see how things progress in the near future. If you enjoyed this video, give a thumbs up. Subscribe and click all notifications so that you will be notified when I go live again. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You're welcome to donate to my PayPal. It's paypal.me/Narc Survivor. If you'd like to book a one-on-one coaching session with me, just go to my website. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. And you can follow me on my Instagram. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. I've just been posting some content on there from my trip earlier this year to the Philippines. All right, thank you all for joining me on another Narc Survivor live video. I appreciate all of your support. And I will speak to you in another one very soon.